Hello everyone, it's Ryan Valley here, Product Manager at Enable Technologies. Today I would like to take you through an introductory video to the all-new Automation Manager. The Automation Manager offers to you a codeless scripting environment through which we're able to create powerful multi-step policies all through a single UI, a single drag and drop interface. The Automation Manager does utilize the full capabilities of PowerShell 2.0, but also requires no prior scripting knowledge in order to build these automation policies, these automation workflows. The reason for that is that the Automation Manager includes over 100 automation objects. It is these objects that can be linked together and executed in sequence or alongside a type of if else, or for each type statement to build these automation policies. What we've done with the Automation Manager is ultimately captured the power of scripting and brought it to you in a single, clean, easy to use user interface. A few noteworthy points is that the Automation Manager today is agent-based execution, which ultimately means that you're able to deploy these automation policies to remote devices that already have a Windows agent installed. We will be opening up probe-based executions within later versions of the Automation Manager. From a prerequisite standpoint, the remote devices that you'll be executing the automation policies on must have .NET 4.0 installed, as well as PowerShell version 2. Why don't we start by logging into N-central. N-central 9.0 does ship with approximately 50 default automation policies. These default automation policies can be found by expanding the configuration pane, expanding scheduled tasks, and looking into the script software repository. I'm actually going to put a filter on this just to show automation policies only. These 50 automation policies or default automation policies all can be listed here. These automation policies are owned by the system account so that they are not directly editable, but you can always view the details of any of the default automation policies by clicking on the view icon to the right hand side. This will bring you directly into the MSP Technical Runbook, where you can see a quick overview of the automation policy as well as a screenshot really describing what the automation policy is going to be doing. All automation policies are captured within the MSP Technical Runbook. After reviewing that information, you may want to leverage this automation policy. You may want to make changes. In order to do so, you must clone the default automation policy, provide a new name, a new description, and now you've taken ownership over that. And you're free to adjust that, free to make changes, whatever the example may be. At this time, what I'd like to do is jump right into the Automation Manager. The Automation Manager Designer can be called from within the Actions pane on the left-hand side. Now that we have the Automation Manager Designer in front of us, I'd like to show a little bit of how we navigate around the Automation Manager. The main pane, the first display pane you see here, is the Policy Creation pane. To the right-hand side, we see that listing of over 100 automation objects, all listed within the Object List pane. There's also search capabilities, looking for the first character within the automation object, so something with folder. If I want to do folder management, I can start with that and parse the object list accordingly. The lower pane of the Automation Manager Designer is dedicated to output. Now, it is adjustable, but this is where we're going to review really the output of any executed automation policy. From the main Policy Creation pane, we can have direct access to the online help related to the Automation Manager. We can create a new automation policy. We can also open automation policies that are currently found on my local machine. Or we can make a call directly to N-central and retrieve a list of automation policies that my account has access to. And by my account, I'm really referring to the account I've logged into N-central with. Why don't I go ahead and choose an automation policy here. So just logged on user will be one. Now that I have an open automation policy, there's a bit of functionality at the top left. From the toolbar, here again we can create new automation policies, open automation policies that are currently found on the local machine. We have save options from a save as. Here we have an upload option. So this is where if I have completed and finalized my automation policy, I can upload that via this button directly to N-central, and now this automation policy is free to be used by any member of the technical team. Here we have our Run button. This will execute the automation policy. During the execution of an automation policy, we do have a Stop button, and then again access to the online help. From the File menu, very similar to you see with the toolbar. From the View options, whether we want to view that toolbar or not. From the Options menu, though, we can specify alternate credentials. Just as you can do within N-central, you can provide to the automation policy different credentials, perhaps as an extension of your testing. Also from the options, we can adjust the properties. This is where we can edit the name or description of the automation policy. Maybe we wish to do that before we upload that, for future use within N-central. We do have debug modes. We're going to go through this in detail, where here we can execute or run the automation policy via the Debug Go option, and this will actually step by step go through the execution of the automation policy, so you can very easily see what the automation policy's paths are, or what is really happening at each step of the execution. We can also toggle breakpoints by selecting on an automation object, coming back up to the debug, then toggling a breakpoint. This will be a point during the execution of the automation policy where the execution will pause, and you must press F5 in order to get past this breakpoint, and then again continue on with the execution of the automation policy. The debug options we will go through a little bit later. Of course, having help options up at the top there. Now that we know our way around the Automation Manager Designer, let's go through a quick demonstration. I'm going to demonstrate for you today creating an automation policy that will prompt a logged on user. I will start by creating a new automation policy simply entitled Prompt User. Now, the first aspect of this automation policy is to determine whether there is a logged on user or not. So I'm going to leverage the isUserLoggedOn automation object. I will click that, hold it down, and drag it over to the automation creation pane. There are mandatory requirements for the isLoggedOnUser object. I can identify that very easily from the exclamation mark. Hovering over it, I can see what are the mandatory requirements. If there were more and more of these automation policy or automation objects that needed this type of attention, we can leverage the errors pane. This is down at the bottom section here, where we can see a list of all automation objects that are requiring or have mandatory fields that require attention. Now back to the demonstration here, I can use the isUserLoggedOn object to determine whether or not a specific user is logged on, but not exactly the use case I'm going for. I'm going to leverage the asterisk character to simply ask or to check whether or not there is any logged on user. So again, I'll just choose my run here. Go back over to the output, and we can see here the output of the execution of this policy so far. So we're running the isUserLoggedOn, or the isUserLoggedOn automation object. We're looking for any domain, any username, and we see here the result is true. So the conditional here would have been true that the user is logged on, or false that there is no user logged on. I'm going to use that conditional information though and leverage that within an if statement. So I'm going to go locate my if statement, drag that over beneath the isUserLoggedOn. What I'm going to do is, again, thinking back to here on the conditional values here of true and false, I'm going to call a variable from the isUserLoggedOn object. So I'm going to call a string variable. Using that little chain link there, I'm going to come up and select the isUserLoggedOn and then the conditional output. So very much related to exactly we see in the output pane. Just hit OK here. So if the string value related to the conditional output of the isUserLoggedOn object equals true, then a user is logged on, and I will just quickly locate my prompt object Here we have it. I will drag that over and be very particular to put that within the then box, because really looking at the or leveraging the if statement, only if the conditional value related to the is user logged on equals true, then we will prompt. Otherwise, we can drag other objects. There may be another workflow that we want to continue on if a user was not logged on. We're just coming back, and now that I've dragged and dropped a new automation object, I can review that errors pane one more time to see here that there's a prompt, a title, and a wait mandatory required fields for the prompt object. So let me satisfy a few of those. And I'll just put a wait here of, let's say, 30 seconds. Perhaps 300 seconds would be a better example, as it's about 5 minutes. After this duration, this wait time has been exceeded, it will actually have a timeout. And this is important because we are giving the users option of selecting OK or cancel or retry, yes or no. And if they're not at their desk to respond, we would want this object or this prompt object to time out, and then we may want to take an alternate course of action. I'm just going to use the OK and cancel. Now that I've built the automation policy that checks if a user is logged on, any user is logged on, and if that is true, that at least one user is logged on, we will prompt them. So I'm just going to run the automation policy. We can keep an eye out on what's happened down at the bottom within the output pane here. That is user logged on? Yes, there is. True equals true, therefore prompt the user. So I can actually hit OK here. There's the prompt, and here's the click result for that user. So this prompt object can be used to allow maintenances or allow the execution of different automation tasks, even though there is a user logged on. What I'd like to do at this time is run the same automation policy, but I'm actually going to use the debug options. So I'm just going to come up to my debug here and press go here. Now what we see is the automation policy getting highlighted. This is as it steps through the execution of the automation policy itself. So what we can do is really kind of follow that right through the execution of the policy. If I want to slow that down even further, what I can do is highlight an automation object and toggle that as a breakpoint. Now that that breakpoint has been added to the prompt object, again I can come to my debug and then go. So what we're doing here is stepping through the execution of the automation object, and once we get to that breakpoint, the execution will pause. So it has not prompted me yet. Of course, it did find that true equals true. There is a user logged on. What I'll do at this time is press F5 on the keyboard, which will continue the execution of the automation policy. F5 would be the shortcut key. We also have the continue option that we could have selected from the debug here. And there we have it. In a few simple steps, we were able to create an automation policy that will prompt any logged on user. One of the last steps that I can do is select my upload button, as perhaps I want to bring that directly into N-Central. And there it will be located within that list of automation policies. So coming back in here, and looking down, we'll find that prompt user, and there we have exactly my automation policy that we've created within the demonstration here today. Again, my name is Ryan Valley, and this has been an introduction to the Automation Manager. Thank you.